Hello, and welcome to Coffee with Jesus. I am your host, Todd Jubilee. Before I begin, I would like to talk about the ads that have been on some of our YouTube videos. First and foremost, we are not monetized at all. We do not see a penny from anything. Some of our videos have done really well lately, and that's a good thing. But the downside is when our videos do that well, YouTube wants to make money off of them. So YouTube will place ads on our videos even though our channel is not monetized. So for those of you who have seen the ads on our videos, I do apologize, but there's really nothing that I can do about it. Like I said, it's a good thing in that our videos are doing really well so that YouTube wants to monetize them, but our channel is not monetized. We do not see a single penny from any ad that shows up on any video. So I hope that you all will bear with us and bear with our videos that have the ads. All that money is going to YouTube and not to Coffee with Jesus. So that being said, in this episode, I would like to talk about how God is in the details. Back in season 1, actually the very second episode I ever recorded is called God is in the Details. And then the second to last episode for season 1, episode number 16, is called God is Still in the Details. And in each of these episodes, I shared experiences on how I turned things over to God and He just took care of me. He took care of everything, even things I didn't even know I needed. So I would like to talk about that kind of thing again because something happened, during the month of May while I was on hiatus. And I would like to share that here and share how God will always take care of you. Sometimes He takes care of you in ways that you don't even expect, that you can't even imagine, and things just go super smooth. And sometimes there are bumps in the road, and God is with you even in those bumps. God is taking care of you even when things seem like they're not going smooth. So I would like to share a little bit about my experience while I was on hiatus and to show you, to illustrate for you that regardless of what situation you find yourself in, God is with you and that God is in the details. Towards the end of April or the beginning of May, my wife and I took a short trip to Las Vegas, Nevada. This wasn't all for pleasure, unfortunately. Part of it was business related. Part of it was, for a job or a prospective job. But before we left, remembering my own prior experiences, once again I turned to God and I said, God, please be in the details. Those of you who have been listening for a while, you know that I'm a worrier. I like to worry, and I'm working on it, and I'm having mixed results. So I just remembered back to the times where God was in the details and where God took care of me. And in this particular instance, I was a little concerned because we had such a short layover in Dallas-Fort Worth. That is a huge airport where you literally have to take a tram to get from one terminal to the next. On paper, our layover was 40 minutes. But when you consider that it takes about 10 minutes to get off the plane, and they close the gate 15 minutes before the flight leaves, really, I only had about 15 minutes maximum to get to the gate. They start boarding 15 minutes early, so really, I was really pressed for time in getting from one gate to the next. So that was my big concern for the trip out there. So I asked God once again, please be in the details. But the thing is, this particular time, I didn't just ask Him to be in the details of this leg of the journey. I asked Him to be in the details of the entire trip, from the moment we left the house till the moment we returned to the house. And folks, I'm going to just tell you right now up front, bit of a spoiler alert, God was in the details. God took care of all the details. We got to the airport a little bit early. We checked in just fine. I checked my bag. We found our way to the terminal. The layover actually went really, really smooth. Smoother than I could have imagined. Our first flight actually arrived to the airport early. We were good, probably 30 minutes early. So we were left with a comfortable amount of time to get from one terminal to the next. Not only that, the gate that we deplaned from was right near the entrance for the tram for that terminal. So my wife and I deplaned, we got on the tram, and we took the tram to our next terminal. And when we got down the stairs to the concourse where all the gates were, our particular gate was, again, right near the stairs from the tram. So rather than worry about this whole thing, I just asked God to be in the details. And God was. Our plane arrived early. Both gates were right near the stairs to the tram. And we not only had enough time to get from one gate to the next, we also had time to get some water and use the facilities before they started boarding on our follow-on flight. Our arrival to Vegas was a little early. We could not check into the hotel yet. So we had what for my wife and I was lunch, but for the time in Vegas was brunch, I guess you could say. We drove around Vegas. We drove out to this small little town called Pahrump, turned around and went right back to Vegas, and drove around the city, And we were able to find the hotel fairly easily, which with all the construction going on, and folks, there was a lot of construction. In the strip, near the strip, away from the strip, there was just construction all over the place in Vegas. And I heard it's because the Grand Prix is going to be there, so they're trying to fix things up, if you will, fix the roads up, and in the expectation of a lot of visitors coming for the Grand Prix. But even still, even with all the construction and the kind of the crazy layout of the city, we found our hotel very easily. We got there, we checked right in, got to our room, and easy as pie. In this particular case, folks, things went better than expected. Things went better than I could have imagined. I had asked God to be in the details, and He was. He took such good care of my wife and I while we were out there. Everything went super smooth, smoother than I could have expected or imagined. But I need to tell y'all that's not always the case. God being in the details doesn't necessarily mean that everything is always going to go smooth. Sometimes there are hiccups. Sometimes there are bumps in the road. And sometimes, things don't always work out peachy keen. Life as a Christian is not always going to be peaches and cream. We're never promised smooth sailing all the time. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes God makes the way very smooth for us. But sometimes there are bumps. And even when there are bumps, God is still in those details, folks. Overall, I got to say, the entire trip to Vegas went so smooth. We found everything that we needed. We had a really good time. And it was a good trip. It was a good trip. It was very smooth. Right up until the end. We got to the Vegas airport. And they say get there 2 hours early. We actually got there 2 hours before that, which is good. Well, okay, let me back up. The way that the Vegas airport is laid out, the rental car facility is off-site. So you have to drive your car to the rental car facility, go through the whole car drop-off process, and then you have to wait for a shuttle that takes you to the airport. So we got to the rental car place 4 hours early, 4 hours before our flight was due to leave. And I got to tell you, folks, it's a good thing we did, because if we had gotten there a mere 2 hours early, we would have missed our flight. It took a long time. We were at our gate about an hour before the flight was due to start boarding. But something happened between checking in for the flight and getting to the gate for the flight. And I'm assuming it was some really bad weather that was just in the middle of the country on that particular day. But our flight got delayed. Delayed to the point where we were going to miss our connecting flight in Dallas-Fort Worth. And this kind of became a bit of a hassle here, because the people at the gate would not deal with us. They were like, no, we can't help you. Go to this gate over here and just talk to them. So I went to the second gate, and it was actually an earlier flight to Dallas-Fort Worth, but they were booked solid, and they had about a dozen people on standby. So the lady there said, hey, go to the customer service desk. They'll help you there. So I went to the customer service desk, and it was closed. I mean, there was a big sign there that said, desk closed, nobody was around. At this point, I didn't know what to do. I tried to call the travel agency, and they were closed on Saturday. So I was out of luck there. So I went back to the second gate, and I asked the lady, I said, look, there's nobody at the customer service desk. Can you just call someone to go to the customer service desk? And she refused. She said, all I can do is my gate here. I'm sorry. I said, I'm not asking you to do anything for me flight-wise. I don't want you to make any changes or anything like that. I just want you to call someone to help me at the customer service desk. It's closed. I'm going to be stuck here. And the lady's like, I'm sorry. I can't do anything for you. I can't do anything for you. And folks, I got to confess a little here, because at this point I was kind of starting to get a little frustrated. And finally I told the lady, I said, what am I supposed to do? Pull up my blanket and spend the night here at the airport? And I didn't mean to be snarky towards her. I know she's trying to do her job. I got really frustrated, and that doesn't excuse my actions, but again, I'm just being open and honest on how things went. Well, the lady did give me a phone number that I could call where they could try to help me out. So I went over to the customer service area, even though it was closed, and I called the 800 number. And the lady on the phone was actually very helpful. She rerouted my whole flight, flew us through a different hub, and got everything set. The only downside was the second flight left about 10 hours, 9 hours later. So we had to spend the next 9-10 hours in the airport, which was not very fun. Now, I toyed with the idea of getting a rental car and just drive around the city for a little while again, but the thing was, in order to get the rental car, we'd have to get all of our bags back. We'd have to leave the airport. We'd have to take the shuttle to the rental car place, get the rental car for a couple hours, turn around, come right back, drop off the rental car, take the shuttle back to the airport. And it didn't seem worth it. So we just stayed in the airport for about 9 hours. Now, folks, I got to tell you this, because even though it was frustrating, and even though we had to spend a lot more time in the airport than we had anticipated, even though I had to take the red-eye flight to get back to the eastern part of the U.S., God was still there. God was still in the details, ladies and gentlemen. Because here's the thing. God provided a way for us to get home. There was another route. Everything had to be rerouted, but God made it happen. And as for spending 9 hours in the airport, there was a lounge there. Like, there was a really, really nice lounge where my wife and I could go, and we could just kind of chill and just relax. It was very comfortable. It was very peaceful, very quiet. Not like you'd expect an airport to be. And so, yeah, we spent several hours, just kind of relaxing in the lounge for a while. And then, about an hour before our plane was due to leave, we went back to the gate and hung out there until they boarded. And, when we landed in Charlotte, getting to our next gate was no problem. We made it there very easily. And then it was just a short hop to back home. And even when we got home, one of the things that was in the back of my mind was, is our checked bag going to make it with us, given all the changes and all the confusion and all that other stuff? So I sort of preemptively went to the lost bag office, and I thought, worst case, my bag arrived a little early. And when I got there, the lady was very friendly, very sharp contrast to Vegas. The lady's like, oh yeah, just hand me a little receipt and I'll look it up for you. And so I did. I handed her the baggage receipt, and she looked up on the computer and she smiled and she said, yep, it'll be coming down right over here. And sure enough, when my flight was rerouted to get me back home, my bag was rerouted as well. So it came down the chute pretty quickly. Those of you who have had to wait for bags at an airport, you realize, or sometimes it feels like your bag is always the last one to come down the chute, right? And this time it was one of the first. Came right down, I grabbed it, and we were on our way. So even though the trip itself was kind of bumpy, God was still in the details. God still worked everything out for my wife and I, right up to and including getting our bag home for us. It was a very long trip. We left the hotel at probably 11 o'clock, and we got home about 9 o'clock the next morning. So it was a very long trip, very long journey. And it was bumpy. But looking over the events as they transpired, I can see God's hand in it. Even though it was bumpy, God was in the details. So folks, in this particular episode, I just want to share not only is God in the details, not only will God take care of you, God is there when things go smooth. God is there when there are bumps. God is there when things are going well. God is there when things aren't going well. Folks, God is with you. God is always with you. God is with you when things are going smooth. God is with you when there are bumps in the road. And God is with you when it seems like there's just no end in sight, when it seems like everything's just falling apart. One of the things I learned on this trip in particular was that God is not only in the details. God is always in the details. But even when things are not going quite so smooth, God is still there. God is still with you. And God is still in the details. So, if you are a worrier like me, you can just ask God up front, God, please be in the details. And folks, He will. He will be in the details. And again, that doesn't mean that everything's going to go super smooth all the time. Although sometimes God will take care of things better than you can even imagine. But folks, even when there are bumps in the road, even when things don't go perfectly smooth, God is still there. God is still with you. God is still in the details. Regardless of what your particular situation is at any given time, God is there. God is with you. God is taking care of you. Folks, God is in the details. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And God bless.